Welcome to the Connor's Corner segment of Ask the Lawyer. With me right now is former NFL center, Super Bowl champion, Matt Birk. Welcome to Connor's Corner, Matt.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Now, I understand you graduated from Harvard. You mean there are guys in Harvard in the NFL?
Well, yeah, more. Usually people are surprised to know Harvard has a football team.
Right,
But yeah, there's a couple of us, there's, I guess I would sort of fancy myself a little bit of the trailblazer. I mean, I'm a lineman, so nobody really cares, right? But
right.
Yeah, there's a few, most notably Ryan Fitzpatrick, a quarterback who's carved out a pretty nice career for himself in the NFL.
That's true. Some people said he was the smartest, IQ-wise, the smartest quarterback in the NFL.
IQ-wise, it's probably true. He's not the best quarterback in the NFL, but yeah, he's one of those guys. I think Ryan's a 1600 SAT guy. He could have got into Harvard without playing football. I, on the other hand, needed a lot of football help to get in there.
Now, where'd you grow up? How'd you get into Harvard?
I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota, really. I mean, the short story is I was just the fat, slow kid who loved sports and tried everything and was not good at anything. So finally in 10th grade, I started playing football, and that's when I discovered that God gave me the gift of getting in people's way and grabbing onto them. And, that translates well to playing O-line.
So you went to college in Harvard. You got drafted?
I was drafted in the 6th round, yes, in 1998, which I was only 172 picks after Peyton Manning that year.
That's all. All right. So now, what is it like in training camp? Where were you? What team drafted you?
Minnesota Vikings, my hometown team. So that was as good as could be. And our offense was really good that year, like historically good. Like scored the most points of any team in the history of the NFL. So those veterans, the Chris Carters and Robert Smiths and Randall McDaniels, they were kind of bored most days. So they really went out of their way to pick on the rookies, and being the hometown kid and having gone to Harvard, there was a lot of low hanging fruit there for those guys.
Well, 6th round draft pick don't always stick around.
No, normally they don't, but I mean this now too. I was very fortunate because I was drafted on a team that didn't need me to play right away. They kind of said, all right, this guy might be a project guy, so got time to develop. And coming from Harvard, it wasn't like, at Harvard, like half the guys aren't at practice on any given day because they're in classes or labs or whatever. So you keep everything pretty basic from a football standpoint. And so my football IQ was pretty low. So I actually needed some time some on-the-job training, if you will, to kind of get an undergraduate degree in football.
How many years did it take you before you were a starter?
My 3rd year, I became the starter.
Okay. How many years did you play in the NFL?
15.
15.
15, now, 11 with Minnesota and then 4 with the Baltimore Ravens.
Now, I heard you speak a couple of months ago, and you were saying that religion is part of the life at the NFL, and I was a little surprised about that. Yeah,
and it definitely is. I mean, the locker room is a very, very spiritual place, and, I know football players get paid a lot of money and this and that, but, there's football stars. Let's say there's 100 stars in the NFL. Let's say each team has 3 stars or maybe 5 stars. That still leaves 1,700 guys who are, you're basically fighting for your job like every single day. And it's super competitive. You have really high highs, really low lows. And, sooner or later, the saying I say is sooner or later the game is going to bring you to your knees. And so, some guys start there. Other guys like me, it takes some hard lessons to figure that out. But, things in the NFL, nothing's real, right? The money's not real. The fame's not real. One week everybody can tell you how great you are. The next week you lose and everybody's telling you you're a bum. And so I really do think, there's something, right? There's something inside of all of us. There's something in our heart that wants the truth, that wants what's real. And, I think after a while, guys, and I put myself in this boat, you try to fill it up you try to fill that hole with other things, with temporal things, with worldly things. And sooner or later you figure out that none of that helps, none of that works, that sooner or later you get to God.
All right, well, getting back to football, you end up with the Baltimore Ravens. How did that happen?
I was a free agent for the first time in my career and was really just taking a visit out to Baltimore as some leverage to the Vikings. As a team, the Vikings, we weren't in a great spot, but yeah, I was home. I'd been playing here 11 years. I was figured I'd just end my career where it started and kind of right off into the sunset. But went out to the Ravens. They were a great team. Had a great young head coach named John Harbaugh at the time. He was a young head coach. And I just loved everything that he was talking about. I loved his philosophy for football, for the way his philosophy of how to build and coach his team is very similar. And I thought, from a football standpoint, I thought if I only have a couple years left, I want to end it playing for this guy. And then as we talked some more, I got to know that he's a deep man of faith. He's a Catholic, and so we just we connected on that level as well. It was just kind of as hard as it was also kind of a no-brainer for me.
I mean, obviously, may sound like a stupid question, but what was it like to play in the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl game?
Yeah, it's not a stupid question. I think it's a good question, or if it is a stupid question, I think I have a stupid answer. I mean, I don't really know from the standpoint that when you're playing in it, you don't look at it like, oh my gosh, this is the Super Bowl. You just, like, honestly, there's party. It's like, hey man, don't go out there and screw this up, right? Like, so you're just super, super hyper focused. And that week, I didn't watch any TV. I didn't go on the internet. All I wanted to keep the game as small as I could, and just really make it about going out there and playing football. Something that I'd done for a very long time, and not get caught up in how big the moment was. And so it's kind of weird. It was almost like an out-of-body experience. I don't remember a ton from the game, which is sort of odd. I've never watched the film, which, as football players, you always watch the film after you play. I've never watched that film because I guess part of me thinks that, like, once I do, then my career is officially over. But I do know this. I do know winning it was a great moment. I do remember seeing my family run onto the field and just remember kind of looking at all them saying, I mean, can you believe this? This is insane. My kids down on the ground doing snow angels and the confetti. It was just, one of those things that you really have to be grateful for, because, very few people get to have moments like that in their lives, and be able to get to share them with the people that you love the most and that love you the most. It's just, that's as good as it gets.
After football, what'd you start doing?
Dieting.
You're thin now.
Well, I don't know if I'm thin, but I'm not as fat as I used to be. Yeah, dieting. I wrote a book. I kind of tried to get kind of busy, just because when you retire, people talk about it in sports, but I think they talk about it too with other professions. You do something for a long time, and there's a comfort there. There's probably part of your identity is tied up in that, at least to people that don't really know you. That's how they see you. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to get really busy and kind of on the fly figure out what's next. And so did all these things, but didn't feel like didn't find my traction right away. I went and worked at the NFL league office in New York City for a couple of years. That kind of really wasn't my thing, and have ended up living back at home with my wife and 8 kids, and close to grandma and grandpa. And I have a couple quote jobs, but for the most part, just trying to be the best husband and dad that I can be.
Here in New York and in other parts of the country, the right to life is becoming, an important issue, and it seems like the country is getting further and further divided. What's your role in the right to life movement?
Well, I did, when we won the Super Bowl, I did decline the invitation to the White House, because when I got the invitation, it was a couple of days after President Obama had given a speech to Planned Parenthood. Was the first sitting president to address Planned Parenthood. And at the end of his speech, he said, "God bless Planned Parenthood." And I would say up to that point, my wife and I were involved in the pro-life movement. My wife started working at pregnancy centers, and I spoke at the Maryland Right for Life. And, obviously being a Catholic, I mean, if you're a Catholic, you're pro-life. If you say you're a Catholic, you're not pro-life, then you're not Catholic. That's how I look at it. So, and I also served on the board of a pregnancy center in Minnesota. But then, so I turned down the invitation to the White House. I like to say I turned down the invitation to the White House before it was the in thing to do. And I was the only one that year and got kind of pressed on why I wasn't there. So I just told a few members of the media, this is why I wasn't there. Just respectfully declined. And, well, then it became a story, right? And I learned all about the 24-hour news cycle, and I'm going on Fox News and CNN and kind of encountering this vitriol that's out there, and that just for me that was sort of took it to another level. Like, wow, I cannot believe that some people so vehemently disagree. Not with me, but are so that having the right to have an abortion is so important to them. So I think with that, my wife and I sort of doubled down our effort, and I go all around the country now and speak at various pro-life events and advocate for the unborn. And certainly there are a lot of causes, and they're all good ones that people can get involved in. But this is the most fundamental cause that there is, and I think personally, I feel like if we don't get this one right, then none of the other ones really matter.
Well said. Now, you said you wrote a book. What's the book about?
The book is called All Pro Wisdom, and it's sort of about just, you ever seen those signs that said, all I ever needed to know I learned in kindergarten? For me, it's like all I ever needed to know I learned playing football. Football is a great metaphor for life. Sort of like a season is kind of like life condensed into one 6-month period. You got all these things happen, and every day as a player, I was looking for inspiration. Our coaches were trying to give you inspiration, and kind of felt like I was fortunate enough to have a job where it was intense. Like there's no days in the NFL that are just days. I mean, it's super intense. So you learn a lot, you figure out a lot. And I just felt like not many people get the chance to be in an NFL locker room. And I just wanted to kind of share these, quote, nuggets of wisdom that I learned along the way, because I think they're applicable not just to football, but to life. And I think whether you play football or like football, I think these are things that everybody can relate to. And so there's 7 questions or 7 choices in the book that I think everybody should be able to answer, or should think about and come up with answers to, if they want to have a great life.
Okay, can you say the name of the book again?
It's All Pro Wisdom, the 7 choices that lead to greatness.
Look for it out there. Matt Birk, Birk, if you're looking for the book on Amazon. Thank you for, being an example for so many of us. It would probably be easy for you to sit back and retire and not worry about getting involved in the vitriol, as you said. But you gave us an example, and we admire you for that.
Well, we're all supposed to just use our gifts and our talents, right? We need to use them for good. That's what God calls us to do. So I try to do that. You're doing that. I'm sure every one of your listeners is trying to do it every single day. And that's just what we're called to do.
God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you.